Welcome to another edition of Around the ECHL every Wednesday here on the American social media channels. Tommy Daniels, glad to be here. And of course, brought to you by True by Hilton, where the away teams stay when they come to Allen. Our guest today is going to be Adam Twenter. He is the pre-intermission and post-game host for the Kansas City Mavericks on Flow Hockey TV. We'll get his story coming up next. Welcome to Around the ECHL, brought to you by True by Hilton. Tommy Daniels here, joined by the intermission, pregame, postgame host for the Kansas City Mavericks, Adam Twenter. Now, you used to have a partner in there, Mr. Joe Rizicki, and now Joe's gone. He is retired at a young age, and now he's left you to carry the load all by yourself, Adam. Doing a great job on Flow Hockey TV. As a matter of fact, I talked to your producer, the guy that puts it all together, and I said, man, that's something that every team in the league should do. How tough is it to do your prep and get your pre and post game and all the information that you provide during that half an hour show?
It's getting in touch with coach. Tato Had's really good about getting us information. I'll shoot him a text sometimes late at night, sometimes early in the morning. And Tad's really good about getting back with us. Our whole media communication staff with the Mavericks is so good about helping us out and really making that a thing that we're really proud of. We're proud of our pregame coverage that we've had for the past couple of years. This year, we've added an intermission and postgame. Kevin and Caleb and Jacob, our intern producer, they all help put all that together. Erica, my co-host, is awesome, and she does a lot of prep during the day as well, in addition to her other duties. So there's a lot of pieces that come together to make that happen. It helps, that we did it last year, and so with Erica being new, I had the experience of having done it before, and kind of filling that color analyst role for the game. But I like doing the intermissions this year. It's cool to kind of get to interact with fans during the game and kind of comment on what's happening during the game time, and still obviously doing the stuff on Twitter during the game that Joe and I have done for years. I'm still doing that, where we're live tweeting the games, answering questions for fans, helping fans understand more about the game, trying to talk about what's happening as things are going on live action. So I love that part of it. Haven't had the player interaction the last couple of years with COVID restrictions and stuff, but coach has been really, really accessible and done a great job of helping us make that something that our organization as a whole here in Kansas City can be proud of.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Obviously, COVID is really, for people in the broadcasting world, the easy after the morning skate or whatever, going up to the locker room and grabbing whoever you want to talk to. Can't do that anymore. And then, you have these Zoom interviews, which are great, gives us the opportunity to still talk to the players. But, there's something about the one-on-one, in person, getting to know the guy, kind of get a feeling of what's going on that day. You miss that. I do anyway.
Yeah, for sure. When Joe and I were working together all those years, like that was kind of my writing role, was I did the player profiles. I was telling the stories, of guys like Rocco Carzo and Neil Goff and Justin Woods, and, really bringing those players' stories to life and trying to not always just tell their story, but also like, what's their message? What are they about, and go beyond just the biographical data. And that's hard to do over Zoom. I've done a couple of them, and it's tough. It's easier, like you said, in that kind of instant reaction to kind of see what was the day really like, in those post-game interviews where you can really get a feel for, their instant reaction and their emotion. And it's tough to do over Zoom. It's better than nothing, but I can't wait till we get back to the day where we still have the locker room media scrum outside the locker room. I really miss those times.
Kansas City is a winner's town. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have kind of put that out to the forefront, but Tato had second year in Kansas City. Do you think he's feeling pressure? You've got a new staff in there in the front office, and obviously fans are impatient. We've seen the attendance down this year. Do you think there's a little pressure on him to win?
I think there's always pressure, to win, especially in a minor league market in a major league town. When you have constant pressure from the Royals have been successful in the past, 7 to 8 years. The Chiefs, obviously, very successful in the last few years. Sporting KC has been incredibly successful. The T-Mobile Center downtown brings in more live concerts than most arenas in the country. And so there's a lot of competition in Kansas City for entertainment dollars, and the Mavericks have carved out a niche for that. I think the winning helps bring in kind of that last 500 to 800 fans that you really need to fill the arena. And so Tad, what I've learned from him over the past couple of years is he's never going to settle for anything less than absolute best effort. And, like he said in postgame last night, guys right now are playing for their jobs. We talked about in pregame last night, that we're 6 weeks out from the trade deadline. We've already made some moves. He's not just going to sit on his laurels and wait for something to happen. He's going to go out and be proactive to try to put a winner on the ice. He's committed to making this organization a winning organization. And in turn, as we've seen, that will bring fans in. We go back to, 2015, 2016, which is in 2016 was when I first came on board in March of that Brabham Cup year for the Mavs. And we saw packed barns, even on a Tuesday night, you'd have a packed barn, and that was a lot of good promotional things happening, but also a product of, you had Josh Robinson in the middle of a 20-something game winning streak, as a goalie. And those matchups when you guys would come to town and we would see Josh Robinson versus Riley Gill, and Costello versus Rocco Carzo and Andrew Courtney and, Spencer Osachek going at it. Those rivalries and those matchups are what brings in that kind of last 5 to 800 fans. And so that's where winning, I think, will play a big, important part. It's getting there. What we're lacking right now, and Tad will be the first to tell you this, is just consistency. And night in, night out, this team will look like a team that could win the cup one night, and the next night we have a game like we had last night, And so it's just getting that consistent play and that consistent effort that he's looking for. He's going to try to find the right guys to do it, just as I know Steve Martinson does down there in Allen as well.
Get sunshine for the whole squad at Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
This is Adam Twenter, does the intermissions and post-game show on Flow Hockey TV. Great job as always. I watch you when I'm not, calling a game. I'll tune in just to see what's going on, and always like the whole show and the prep that you do to get yourself ready for the game. I wanted to, you mentioned a name a few moments ago that really hit home, Andrew Courtney. He's become a good friend. I've known Andrew going back. I met him at the All-Star game in Arizona back in 2012, and we've kept in touch ever since. He sent me a message yesterday. Funny message. I told him, I said, hey, I'd love to see you come up to a game if you get an opportunity. But I feel like he's one of those names that needs to be, his name needs to be in the rafters somewhere. You've got Sebastian Tunnell up there, nothing against Sebastian. But when I think of the, former Missouri Mavericks, now Kansas City Mavericks, I think of Courtney. How come his name is not up there?
That's a great question. One of the things the Mavericks, I know, put together a few years ago was some criteria for retirement of numbers, and there was a committee that was put together, and that happened. Tunnell's number gets retired right before COVID hits, and so I think that's probably been kind of set aside for now due to COVID and just limited fan interactions and the ability to get that committee back together. Obviously, the change at GM and kind of a restructuring, like you mentioned, of the front office. So I think some of that's just been tabled for right now. I do think eventually you'll see 27 hanging in the rafters, or you could hang 28 in the rafters. You might remember when Andrew Courtney first came to the Mavericks for those last probably month or so of the season. He actually wore 28 for the first few games. That was when he had his first goal and his first hat trick. And ironically enough, that number 28 Andrew Courtney jersey hangs in my basement. I have the only one in existence. Which is pretty cool. Yeah, Andrew knows. I said, hey, buddy, you wanted it, it's yours. And he said, no, I want you to have it. So it's inscribed with first career goal, first career hat trick. And he signed it after his last professional game. But Andrew's a great friend. I still talk to him every now and then. I have friends that are like, I met this guy at UPS, and he says, he used to play for the Mavericks. Do you know a guy named Andrew Courtney? And so the name still circulates around town. People still recognize him. He's been out to a few games the last few years. always good to see Courts in the building. Just a guy that embodied everything that the Mavericks organization for the past 12 plus seasons has been about. I know in Allen, you guys have a lot of those players as well, those alumni guys, a guy like Steffes, who's been around the organization so long and, just embody what those, you think back to those early matchups in the Central Hockey League days that were just bloody brawls, it felt like every night, on the ice, and not just the fighting, but just the way those teams went at it. And, some of those guys from Allen, and then some of it, like you mentioned, Andrew Courtney, Sebastian Chanel, Dave Chazinski, all those guys kind of just embodied those early games. That really what made the brands, the Allen Americans and the then Missouri Mavericks, now Kansas City Mavericks. They embodied that brand.
Well, these two teams will forever be entwined because of you go back to year 2009-10. Both teams entered the Central Hockey League. Yep. Also, Charlie Effinger, who was ironically the first ever Allen goaltender. He played in our first game, way back when in October of 2009. Got a 1-0 shutout win in the Americans' first game against the Arizona Sundogs. Later, he gets hurt, fluke injury. Chris Whitley comes in, never gives up the job. Effinger ends up getting traded, goes to Kansas City, well, at the time, Missouri Mavericks. But, there's a lot of similarities between these two teams. The building, for goodness sakes, when you're maybe not the outside, maybe not the concourse, but when you're inside the bowl area, it looks so much like our building. Obviously, same company back in the day that built several of those buildings, including the one in Arizona. So, just a lot, when you think about the Mavericks and the Americans, even though I would say our biggest rival, if you were to poll our fans, would be the Wichita Thunder for a lot of different reasons, maybe going back to the ownership sharing back in the day. But, there's just so much between these two teams, some great battles over the years. Hey, when we look at the playoffs this year, Adam, it's still wide open. I think Rapid City, Tulsa, they're there right now. They're in the top 4, but I think the two teams that everybody would probably agree would lock up the top 2 spots, Idaho and Utah. Does Kansas City, move ahead now a month? Are they in the playoff picture? Does this team have what it takes to get to that top 4 and hold one of those spots?
Below Zero Cryo, whole body cryotherapy stimulates the body's natural healing abilities through exposure to extreme cold. Cryotherapy was developed in Japan in 1978 as a treatment for rheumatoid arthritis. Over the past 3 decades, it's become even more popular as its performance-enhancing and general health and wellness benefits have become more well-known. Call Below Zero Cryo for an appointment today. 469-362-8191. Below Zero Cryo is located at 8715 Lebanon Road, Suite 400 in Frisco.
Yes, if a few things happen. And I think one of the biggest things is we got to get healthy. You and I chatted a little bit last night that Alan's kind of dealing with the same thing is we haven't had a consistent lineup, it feels like, in months because of COVID, because of injuries, call-ups with, our affiliate in Stockton being based back in Stockton this year and not up in Canada. There's been a lot more player movement back and forth for the Mavs up to the Heat as the NHL put the taxi squad back in, as I know that kind of put pressure on all the ECHL squads because the AHL team started calling up guys, and so we dealt with that a lot too. It goes back to what I said earlier, consistency. Can the Mavericks put together consistent, I don't like using the word effort because these are professional players, but can they put together consistent systems that make sense and work and are effective every night? And the biggest struggle that the Mavs have had recently has been defense in front of their goaltenders. If you look at the stats last night, it looks like Daniil Chechelev just got lit up, and to be honest, he did, but the defense in front of him, as Tad talked to us after and post game, it just wasn't good enough. And that's something that the Mavs battled in the 3 games down in Allen last week as well, was consistent defensive effort in front of the goaltenders. And the goaltenders take a lot of the brunt of it. Shortridge and Chechelev and now Greenfield have taken a lot of hits this year in the media and on social media and stuff. But really, we need to look at as a team, because there have been moments where Shortridge, Greenfield, Chechelev have looked like NHL quality goaltenders. And you can definitely see why they're in Calgary's pipeline as potential future NHL attendees. And it's just that consistent effort in front of them. And I mentioned last night, we were talking about what do the Mavericks potentially need to add between now and the trade deadline. And I think it's depth of scoring. That top line of Pastajov, Ben Johnson, and Angeli has been really, really good. And that's where most of our scorings come from. Recently, can we get some depth? Can we get some second and third line scoring? I love Brian Lemos. I love to see when he scores goals. It's been down a little bit this year. Loren Ouellette brings so much to the game outside of scoring, but if he can get his scoring touch going, we're getting some of that third line, second line scoring happening again. So that's going to be the biggest test, I think, can the Mavs get in that playoff picture, is consistency and then just depth and maybe getting some guys healthy. I mean, we were pulling guys off the street 3-4 weeks ago. Ryan Galt's a guy that's been in our lineup pretty consistently. He was coaching youth hockey and working down at University of Missouri, Kansas City in the athletic department, 6 weeks ago, and now he's a regular contributor in this lineup. So I think you're right. The top two teams, Idaho and Utah, those guys are in as for all sake purposes. But can Allen, the Mavericks, and Tulsa and Rapid kind of sort this thing out? And I think as we look down the stretch, I know at least looking at the Mavericks schedule, it's pretty much divisional games for the most part from here on out. We had that one game against Indy scheduled that got changed to a game against you guys to give everybody, hopefully in our division, the full 72. And so it's going to be fun to watch. I think all four teams have things that they're really strong at, but all four teams also have pretty glaring weaknesses that show themselves from time to time. So it's for all four of those teams, it's going to be, can they put together consistent effort over more than a 2 or 3 game stretch, but over maybe a 4-week stretch? And if they get a consistent run, then they'll lock themselves in as well.
Well, the Americans have a couple real tough road trips coming up here over the next couple of months. One to Cincinnati, which will happen later this month, and Toledo the month after. So I think those series like that could really determine, how do you go fare against some of the top teams in the league. And I think you kind of look at those, and not that you don't, not that you want to overlook the divisional matchups against, Wichita and Tulsa and in Kansas City. And obviously we play you guys the most going down the stretch, pretty much done with Utah and Idaho for the most part, but it'll be fun. It definitely will be fun. I think the Americans have a chance too. You look at now some goaltending, consistent goaltending. Luke Parasini, who came in, picked him up on a trade from Worcester, and he has been just fabulous, in the 3 games he's played. So Bobo obviously has been the man this year. He's got the most wins, but you don't know how often you're going to see him. Recently signed again to Charlotte by Seattle. So you can't count on, Bobo. So you have to have a couple other guys in the mix. And I think Murat, who seemed to get his confidence back last week in that win against Kansas City, in Parasini, who you saw last night, those are probably going to be the 2 guys going forward, as we talked about earlier, the key in goaltending and getting that consistent play between the pipes. Adam, I can't thank you enough for doing this. That's the handsome face that you see if you're watching Flow Hockey TV, pregame, intermissions, and postgame. Thanks for doing this today. I know you have another job, a day job, but we appreciate you giving us some time out of your busy schedule.
Hey, no problem. Anytime, Tom. Anything for you guys.
All right, that's Adam Twenter. You'll see him tonight as the Mavericks and the Americans wrap up their 5-game series. This has been Around the ECHL.
Hello, Americans fans. Former American defenseman Nolan Dakota here with a message from Fast Signs in Plano. Both Plano locations are independently owned and operated by myself and are proud partners with the Americans for this season and the Americans Drive for 5. At Fast Signs, we understand the burden this difficult time presents on businesses, and helping you to solve your changing visual communication and business challenges is our commitment. Mention this ad when you call Fast Signs in Plano for 10% off your next order. Fast Signs, more than fast, more than signs.